You cut regulations for special interests. You try to bust the unions. You cut back on investments in education and clean energy and research and technology. The basic idea is if we put our blind faith in the market and we let corporations do whatever they want and we leave everybody else to fend for themselves, then America's somehow automatically going to grow and prosper. Well, let me tell you something. The problem with their theory is it didn't work. We tried it for 8 years. It didn't work for middle-class families who saw their incomes fall and their costs go up when Republicans were in charge. I want everybody to understand, between 2001 and 2009, the wages of middle-class families went down 5%. They didn't go up, they went down. Job growth was the slowest that it had been at any time since World War II. Slower than it's been over the last year. When they were in charge, they took a record surplus from Bill Clinton, and by the time I got there, we had a record deficit. And because of that free-for-all that they had on Wall Street, we're still digging our way out of the crisis. That's their track record. Now, listen, everybody, I don't bring this up because I want to relitigate the past. I bring it up because I don't want to relive the past. I don't want to go through what we already gone through. I bring it up because this philosophy that the other side intends to bring if they win in November. Republicans might have a new name for it. They call it the Pledge to America, but it's the same old stuff they've been peddling for years. Let's take a look at the Pledge to America. Anybody read the Pledge to America? Let me tell you, for starters, it turns out that the pledge was actually written in part by a former lobbyist for AIG and ExxonMobil. That should tell you something right there. You can't make that stuff up. And the centerpiece of the pledge is a $700 billion tax cut that would only go to the top 2%, the wealthiest 2% of Americans. 98% of you would not get this tax cut, but they would borrow $700 billion from the Chinese or from the Saudis or somebody. That's their big idea to get the economy moving again. These are the same folks who lecture us on fiscal responsibility. But now they want to borrow $700 billion to give a tax cut worth an average of $100,000 to millionaires and billionaires. When you ask them, where are you going to get the money? They say, well, we don't have it. But mostly they're going to borrow it from other countries. And just to pay for a small part of it, they want to cut education by 20%. They would reduce financial aid for 8 million college students. Now, Philadelphia, at a time when the education of our country's citizens is one of the most important things for economic success. The notion that we would give out tax cuts to folks who don't need them and sacrifice the next generation, that does not make any sense at all. I want to ask my Republican friends, do you think China's cutting back on education? Do you think South Korea or Germany or India are cutting back on education? Those countries aren't playing for second place, they're playing for first place. Guess what? America does not play for second place either. We play for first place. So Philly, as long as I'm president, we're not going to let Washington politicians sacrifice your education for a tax cut we can't afford. And that is a choice in this election. Joe and I, we've got a different idea about what the next 2 years should look like. And it's an idea rooted in our belief about how this country was built. We know government doesn't have all the answers to all our problems. We know the private sector is primarily responsible for creating jobs and prosperity. I believe government should be lean and efficient, and I don't want anybody in Washington wasting your taxpayer dollars. That's why I proposed a 3-year spending freeze, set up a bipartisan fiscal commission to deal with our deficit. But in the words of our first Republican president, named Abraham Lincoln, we also believe that government should do what people can't do better by themselves. We believe in a country that rewards hard work and responsibility. We believe in a country where we look after one another. We believe in a country where working people can come together so they can get a minimum wage and better working conditions. We believe that I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. That everybody deserves a fair shot at the American dream. That's the America I know. That's the choice in this election. We want to make permanent. We want to make permanent tax cuts for the middle class because you deserve a break. Instead of the other side's plan to keep giving tax breaks to companies that are shipping jobs overseas, I want to give those tax breaks to companies that are investing right here in the United States of America. I want to give it to small businesses and to American manufacturers and to clean energy companies. I don't want solar panels and wind turbines and electric cars built in Europe or Asia. I want them built here in the United States of America by American workers. Instead of cutting education and student aid, we want to make our new college tax credit permanent. $10,000 in tuition relief for every young person who goes to college. We're going to fight to keep the reforms we made to the student loan system because thanks to those reforms, tens of billions of dollars in taxpayer subsidies that'd be going to banks right now are going to students. That's where they belong. If the other side wins, they'll try their hardest to give rein back to the insurance companies and the credit card companies and the Wall Street banks that we're finally holding accountable. We can't let them do that. We can't go back to the days of taxpayer-funded bailouts. We can't go back to the day when credit card companies could just jack up your rates without any reason, or insurance companies could deny or drop your coverage just because you get sick. We need to keep that new law in place that says if you're looking for a job or have a job that doesn't offer you coverage and you're a young person, you can stay on your parents' insurance until you're 26 years old, and that they can't drop your coverage just because you get sick. That's the choice in this election, Philadelphia. That's what's at stake right now. So, Philly, it comes down to this. Many of the Republicans who are running right now, these are the exact same folks who spent the last decade driving our economy into a ditch. And once we were elected, Joe and I, we put on our boots, we went down into that ditch. It was muddy and dusty down there, and it was hot. And we started pushing on that car to get it out of the ditch. And we had a whole bunch of folks like Joe Sestak helping us push that car out of the ditch. And every once in a while, we'd look up at the Republicans. They had driven into the ditch, but they'd gotten out and they were kind of taking a break, fanning themselves and sipping on a Slurpee, watching us do all the work. And every once in a while, they'd say, "Why don't you push harder? You're not pushing the right way, Obama." But they didn't help. And after pushing and pushing over these last 20 months, finally, we've got that car out of the ditch. Now, the car's a little dented up. Fender's a little busted. It needs a tune-up. But it's moving. It's pointing in the right direction. We're on level ground now. We're starting to make repairs. And suddenly we get a tap on our shoulder and we look back, and who is it? It's the Republicans. And they say, what are they saying? They say, "We want the keys back." Philadelphia, they can't have the keys back. They don't know how to drive. They don't know how to drive. They can ride with us if they want, but they got to get in the back seat because we want to go forward. We don't want the special interest riding shotgun. We want working families, middle class. They're our priority. I just want everybody to notice, when you get in your car and you want to go forward, what do? You put the car in D. If you're going backwards, what do? You put the car in R. That's not a coincidence. You want to ride forward, put it in D on November 2nd. But listen. Can I just say, at the end of the day, Philly, whether the Republicans get the keys back or not, it's going to depend on you. There's no question the other side sees a chance to get back in the driver's seat. And thanks to a Supreme Court decision called Citizens United, they're being helped along this year by special interest groups that are spending unlimited amounts of money on attack ads, on attacking folks like Patrick Murphy, attacking folks like Joe says, just attacking people without ever disclosing who's behind all these attack ads.